department is planning. I'm going to just preface this with a couple of comments and then turn over the microphone. My name is Ann Berry. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Minnesota Department of Human Services. As you know, for the last 20 or more years, the way the state has treated clients in our care has changed rather dramatically. This campus is one good example of those changes. I started my career over 30 years ago working at Rochester State Hospital at a time when we placed all clients who were developmentally disabled in institutional environments. That's changed quite dramatically, as you're all aware, and that's where you saw many, many changes taking place on this campus over the course of the last 15 and 20 years. Just a couple of things that I want to preface my remarks with and then talk about our goal for this afternoon. First of all, one of the things we've heard quite frequently is, well, the department is doing what it's doing because the courts have been involved in the business of the department. And part of that is true. We are currently in a court settlement. It's called the Jensen Court Settlement. It has nothing to do with sex offender treatment. It has everything to do with people who are developmentally disabled and currently being served on this campus. And one of the things that we have been agreed to as a part of the settlement and going forward was to move clients who are currently on this campus, on the Cambridge campus, off campus, because they can be safely treated and cared for and their needs attended to in the community, something we've been doing in the state for over 30 years. So we were faced with a campus that would not have had any clients, any employees, or anybody on the campus, probably by the middle of next year. I want to also publicly state my apologies to the mayor, to the city council, to county commissioners, to others, all of you here today. I called the mayor almost immediately after I discovered that she had found out the information about what the department was doing in the newspaper, and that is no way for our community or community officials to find out about what the department is planning. So you have my apologies, you have the apologies of the department and of the commissioner. And what we were able to do was to take some time about a week ago to sit down with the mayor, local law enforcement, county commissioners, others in positions of responsibility, just to talk through what the department was considering. Now, my words have also been suggested that I have said that those people and others in the community support what we're doing. I don't think I go that far, clearly. What I would say is that we listen to one another. And that's what takes me to our goal for today, is to listen to one another. And that is for you to fully understand what the department intends to do so that you have accurate information. We make our best decisions when we have really good information, so we'll be here as long as you need us to answer questions that you have about what our plans are. And we're not done. I mean, our plans aren't completed, so this is a really good opportunity for us to hear some of your concerns and hear your questions. Another goal would be for you to clearly understand the population we are talking about. And finally, the question that everybody has is around safety and security. It is part of our business, it is part of our jobs to make sure that the clients we serve are safe and that you who live in communities are safe as well. We all live in communities, we all live in neighborhoods where there are licensed facilities and clients who are moving into our communities and being treated and cared for, and we care deeply. We understand that. So this is our opportunity to raise issues, to listen to one another. So I'm going to ask just one thing for Nancy Johnston, our Executive Director, and Liz Barlow, our Reintegration Specialist, to both get a chance to explain what are part of the plan, and then we'll be open for questions. And I said, we have plenty of time, we'll be able to take all the questions that you have. So I'm going to turn this over to Nancy Johnson. She is our Executive Director of the Minnesota Sex Offender Treatment Program, and she'll take it from here.
Can everybody hear okay in the back? The mic kind of, it's going in and out a little bit. The little, what was that? Oh. Well, I'll do the best I can and speak as clear as I can, and we'll go from here. My name is Nancy Johnson, and I'm glad for this opportunity this afternoon. Like Ann said, a couple of weeks ago we had a chance to meet with city officials and city leadership and county, and we really appreciated that time in a small group to talk about concerns, to talk a little bit about what we're planning, and then to organize this forum today and tonight. And hopefully, like Ann said, we can answer questions with the information that we do have. We are at the beginning stages of this. This was announced a couple of weeks ago, and we're in the middle of planning. This is going to take a lot of planning as we open our third site. I thought what I would do is just lay some groundwork and foundation, and Liz is going to talk specifically about reintegration and deinstitutionalization, and kind of tag team from where I leave off. Just to give you some context, and if you've read in the papers, or if, you can't hear me? Okay. I'm going to keep it really close to my mouth. Did you catch any of what I just said back there? No. Okay. All right. Hang in there with me. I'm going to repeat myself a little bit. I thought it would be a good idea to lay some foundation down in terms of information about the program. Many of you may know a lot about the program. I'm assuming there are folks in the audience who are more unfamiliar. The Minnesota Sex Offender Program currently is located in St. Peter and in Moose Lake. Up at Moose Lake, we have around 510 clients, and in St. Peter, right around 180. We share the St. Peter campus with those men and women who are civilly committed as mentally ill and dangerous. And the clients that we serve are committed as sexually dangerous person or sexual psychopathic personality. Within our population, we serve different needs at different sites. In Moose Lake, we have admissions, and we have men who are going through the court process before they're civilly committed. We have also men who choose not to participate in treatment, although our treatment rate is right around about 80–85% of the men choose to participate. These men, and we have one woman in the state of Minnesota, actually, are committed indeterminately. And the department doesn't decide who comes our way, and we don't decide who leaves. What we do is provide treatment, and that's what our business is about. I personally have been in the business of working with offenders most of my 30-plus year career. The last 15 years have specifically been with sex offenders, both juveniles and adults in residential and community settings. There's some folks with me today, being one, Ralph Schmidt, our Director of Office of Special Investigations, Shelby Richardson, my Deputy Director for the program, and combined we have many years of experience with this population. I'll move back to Moose Lake admissions and those men that don't participate in treatment, and then we have 6 specialty units. We have a unit for those men who struggle with mental health issues. We have a unit called Young Adults for those men who may have been committed at a young age, like at 19. And also men who are maybe less mature and needing to be with men more their age and more their maturity level. We do have clients that were committed and had not been incarcerated in prison prior to their commitment. Most of the clients that we serve have been through the prison system, but there are a handful of young men who came to us out of a juvenile setting. Another specialty unit at the Moose Lake facility is called assisted living. We have men who are elderly and who have mobility problems, who are medically compromised, may have a terminal illness, and the unit's highly medical. This population is aging, and with 700 clients in our program, we do have a lot of folks in that age group. Another unit we call behavioral therapy, and that's a small unit designed for the clients who might not be in behavioral control and need a time in which to separate from their peers on their unit and kind of get it together. And they might be having more difficulty than others with their behavior and controlling their anger. Once that has occurred, they go back to the living unit that they normally reside on, the small unit. And then we have what we call our conventional program, and that is our treatment program, phases 1, 2, and 3. And Liz will talk a little bit about our phase program. So the clients at Liz Lake are in the beginning stages of treatment, and they're waiting for their court process to play out, or they're in one of those specialty groups that I mentioned. And we have out of 700 clients, those that are in the conventional program, majority of the beginning stages of treatment.
Yeah, we might have to try. We're looking for another mic that works here, but being that it's cordless, the only thing we can think of is maybe using this mic.
Yeah.
For
Should
you
I come
folks.
down there? Or?
Testing.
This would be much better.
Thank you.
Yeah, we want you to be able to hear.
Testing.
All right.
I will pick up where I left off unless... Much better. Okay. So maybe the last 8 minutes, did you catch part of what I was saying in terms of where folks live and what we serve? Yes and no?
No, not really.
Okay. Okay. So bear with me again. I'm going to try it one more time. We have a total of right around 700 completely. Yep, in total. There are around 510 that live in Moose Lake, and 180 clients who live in St. Peter. And what I was just rattling through a few moments ago was the lay of the land, where our clients reside and where they are in their treatment process. And I was mentioning to you that at Moose Lake we have an admissions unit where men are coming in through the system. They are not yet civilly committed, and they're walking through the court process, and it's quite a long process. And we have clients who may choose to not engage in treatment. It is their right to decide whether or not they're going to participate in sex offender-specific treatment. And then we have several specialty units in Moose Lake. We have a unit for men who are medically compromised and have mobility problems. They might have a terminal illness or be quite elderly. Our population is aging. You can imagine out of 700 men that we have several that are older. We have a unit for young adults, the opposite, for the men who might have been civilly committed as a juvenile at age 19 and may not have even served any prison time before committed. We have a mental health unit for those men who have more serious and persistent mental health needs. We have units for those men who may not be in behavioral control and need a timeout, if you will, to be off the unit away from their peers to get it together and regain control of their behavior and be able to be back into the regular population. It's a small unit and it's more respite, like where they might go onto the unit and go back to their living unit. Phases 1, 2, and 3 really encompasses what our program's about. And up at Moose Lake, we have phases 1 and part of the beginning part of phase 2. That is the majority of our men. As you may or may not know, in 2003, when the population growth exploded for our program, we've been committing, the courts have been committing about 50 men a year. So we have gone through tremendous growth. You've probably read that in the newspapers and elsewhere. And so that's why we're sitting at 700 as we are today. The program, our mission and our function is to treat who we get.
The courts decide who is committed from a particular county into our program. Once they're committed into our program and they choose to be in treatment, that's when treatment begins. If they choose to leave treatment, they'll stay with us, of course, but they'll not be in treatment. When they have reached a point in their treatment where they've progressed throughout our phase system and they petition to be provisionally discharged or to transfer out, and Liz will talk a little bit about our Community Prep Services program. The courts make the decision whether or not they transfer or whether or not they're provisionally discharged. The program does not have that authority, nor does the department. In St. Peter, we serve about 100 or so men and one woman who have intellectual disabilities, who might have severe learning disabilities, traumatic brain injury, just learn at a different pace. And they are in one building. It's called Pexton, and that's our alternative program. And so the treatment program is really designed to meet their special needs. We also
have those people been civilly committed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep, everybody has been civilly committed as a sexually dangerous person or sexual psychopathic personality by the state of Minnesota. Except for those men who might be waiting for the court process and they're on hold status by the courts. In St. Peter, we have the end stage of phase 2, the men who have moved through Moose Lake. They've moved through our phase program, and they're at the later stages of treatment. We also have phase 3 in St. Peter. That's a smaller group of men who've made it through the phase system and have earned privileges outside the secure perimeter on the grounds of St. Peter and in the community. That group is about, I'm guessing, right around 30 at this time. And slowly, over time, their privileges are increased in terms of being out and about outside the secure perimeter, in terms of working outside of the perimeter but still on grounds in St. Peter. Besides the lay of the land, I really wanted to talk about who is coming to Cambridge. The clientele that the 6 identified men that will be petitioning to reside at the Cambridge campus. There are 6 individuals that just beginning the petition process, and because this has to go through a special review board and a Supreme Court appeals panel process, it could be early or late spring before any of these clients move on to the Cambridge campus. Those 6 individuals all can be served safely outside of St. Peter. They are all have disabilities of some sort, are lower functioning, and have reached a point in their treatment process that they can be served safely outside of the secure perimeter of St. Peter in a less restrictive facility or environment. So that process needs to play out, and it could be into, like I said, late spring, maybe even early summer, depending on how that moves along. What you might have read in the newspaper is the second group of 6 men also have been identified that will be petitioning to come to Cambridge, and those are men who live in Moose Lake now on our assisted living unit, who are older and have medical problems. And they range in age from in their 40s to in their 80s. Lastly, I really wanted to talk about safety and security. We spent a great deal of time talking with the City Council and county officials and police department and sheriff about safety and security, and I'm going to address it, and I also have others here that can answer specific questions as well. Since we're in the beginning stages of planning for this campus, we're in the midst of developing work groups to to address security and staffing and operations and special services, programming, vocational, educational, recreational, clinical, treatment, health services, physical plant. These are all work groups that are going to be working over the next many, many months to establish a program here in Cambridge. Regarding the facility itself, we'll have the first 6 move into one of the townhomes that are 6 beds. The doors will be locked, card reader doors where an alarm goes off if it's attempted to open without a card reader, without a card to open the door. All of the men will wear a global positioning system, a GPS, a bracelet on their ankle. It's an active program and system that Ralph can talk a little bit more specifically about GPS and how we track individuals. In St. Peter, all of the men who have privileges outside and are in our community prep services program wear the bracelet. We do have one provisionally discharged client. He's in the community of Minneapolis, and he also wears a GPS bracelet at all times. Our staff are highly trained. Our business is keeping people safe and providing treatment. Security and safety wraps around treatment, and we can't have good treatment without safety and security for staff and for clients and for the public. The clients, when they're outside of the building in Cambridge, will be escorted by staff at all times, along with a GPS bracelet. There's a vocational building. These men will be engaged in some sort of work yet to be planned. And there is a recreation area for the men to recreate as well, outside of the small town home. And they'll be supervised at all times. We're going to put a gate at the front entrance so that people in general wouldn't walk onto the grounds. And that also will be a card reader, and we'll have someone inside the administrative building also watching the gate in terms of allowing visitors and such. And we have all of those details yet to work out. Oh, if you wouldn't mind, we were hoping we could get through our information and then open it up for questions, and it's only 3:25, so I think we'll have time to answer your questions. I already mentioned, then I want to also talk about OSI, and Ralph, I think you met earlier today with the police chief and the sheriff's department, along with a few other folks. Our Office of Special Investigation are internal investigators within our program who conduct polygraphs, do intelligence gathering, our investigations if there is one to occur. They monitor phones. All of the clients here at Cambridge, their phones will be tape recorded and monitored, just like we do at Moose Lake and St. Peter. And they're also involved with our treatment team in behavioral management procedures and process, and they're part of our team. I'm going to go back to the clientele for one moment, and I want to emphasize to you that the 6 men who are coming, if the courts so choose to put them here, those 6 men are Minnesota Sex Offender Program. And what that basically means is that I oversee and work with the clientele that live outside the secure perimeter. I'm going to talk a little bit about our treatment program, a little bit about our treatment program, and a little bit about what we do for most of our clientele. And then also talk about the court process, so you can understand, if sent here, what the clients have gone through with us before coming onto campus. So as was mentioned earlier, our treatment program is based on a 3-phase program. Phase 1 is the time where clients learn how to be productive members of the treatment process, how to give feedback and receive feedback, how to not become angry and have emotional outbursts, and how to manage emotions when they come up. We want the clients to be able to do that before they do the bulk of their sex offender specific work, because it's hard work. And we know that it's hard to do that work if you don't have
a good understanding of yourself and how to manage your emotional reactions to things. Once the clients have completed that work, they go through several assessments, and the team makes the determination they're ready to begin working on the phase 2 goals. All the work that's done is related to risk. Our treatment program is based on the research evidence that has been identified of how to best treat sex offenders to reduce their risk so that they are safe to go back out into the community at some point. The phase 2 work is probably what most of you would think of for sex offender work. The guides have the opportunity to look at how they got to where they were, where they made the choice to offend, what things were happening that led them to that place where they could make that decision, and what do they need to do to not do that again. And like I said before, that's really, really hard work. And at times it's difficult for the clients to engage in that process. So it does take a longer period of time than some of the other phases in treatment. As part of that, we do numerous assessments to validate the information they're telling us. We use things like polygraphs to make sure we understand their complete history. So we know what kind of people that they have victimized, so we know how to help them be safe. We use additional assessments like psychological tools and other assessments so that we have a full picture of what their offending history was like. Once they complete that work, they're assessed by a team of people in the program to see if they're ready to move to phase 3, which is the reintegration portion of our program. That starts inside the secure perimeter, and as the clients progress through that work, they would then petition the court for movement outside of the secure perimeter. We're very fortunate in Minnesota that we have the opportunity to do that in a very thoughtful way. In some states, in some places, literally you're in the program or you're not. And for our guys, they've been in our program and prior to our program in the Department of Corrections for many, many years. So it's important that they decompress from that experience in a thoughtful way that maintains public safety. So we do it very systematically. First, they get to go outside and walk on grounds with staff. It's the first thing that they start to do in St. Peter. For some of our guys, it's the first time they've been outside of a razor wire fence in decades. And then they come back into the safety of the secure perimeter to process that, talk about that, and really understand what that means to them. And there are other things they work on as well, but again, we build up the opportunities for them to have increased levels of liberty until such a time that they can petition the court for movement outside the secure perimeter. The court process is incredibly complicated, and I can spend 2 hours trying to explain it to you. So I'm going to try to break it down into a nutshell version. So I apologize if it sounds pretty simplistic. It really isn't. A client asks the court for a change in location. That first hearing goes before something called a special review board. It's 3 people that hear the case. It's an attorney, a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and another person who has a history of working with people with mental illness. What that group of people hear is all the information we have on that client. It's how they've done in treatment, how they've done behaviorally on the unit, how they've interacted with staff and their peers. They also hear from a very unique group of people called forensic psychologists that evaluate their risk to the public. They evaluate their history as well as where they currently are. And they offer an opinion on the statutory language of whether or not they can be safely moved to a different environment. Would you mind writing? People who are identified victims have a venue to ask to be notified at all the stages of the legal process. So for some of our clients, there are people who have requested that and are notified every time there's a legal court action. So the special review board hears all this information, including an evaluation of that person's current risk as well as historical risk. And they say whether they agree that they can move or whether they cannot. That opinion then goes before the courts, the State Court of Appeal panel, or the SCAP. We have a lot of acronyms, so I apologize if we start using them. If we do, raise your hand and we'll actually tell you what they mean, because we forget sometimes if we do it. But the State Court of Appeals panel then looks at the case, sees if there are any objections, sees if the burden's been met, that they have met that legal language to move, and then they provide a court order. The court can either transfer someone, they can provisionally discharge someone, or they can fully discharge someone. The first two, transfer and provisional discharge, the clients still are MSOP clients. We're still responsible for their treatment, supervision, and oversight. We're still responsible to maintain their schedules and their programming and the public safety. A full discharge basically is open the door, let me out, and I'll just be a regular sex offender. Because again, MSOP doesn't have all the sex offenders in the state of Minnesota. There are actually many, many thousands, in fact I believe 17,000 or so, 16,000 or so registered sex offenders in Minnesota that have nothing to do with MSOP. For the guys who are transferred and provisionally discharged, one of the things that they have to prove to the court is that they are able to maintain public safety in a less secure setting. So the reason why we wanted to tell you a little bit about the process in our treatment program is so that you would have an idea of these 6 guys. They're not just getting out of prison because their time is up. They're not just getting out and never having done treatment. And they're not behaviorally involved because they wouldn't meet that statutory criteria for transfer. They have a sustained history of demonstrating cooperation. They have made gains in treatment and managed the risk to the extent that is necessary to be considered for that move. And again, it's the court's decision then if they do transfer them or provisionally discharge them. I also apologize that the allergy season has gotten a little bit better of me this year. I think that probably is the bulk of what I was going to talk about. Did you have anything else, Nancy, that you want to cover that?
Okay. We'll take your questions if you have them, and once if I can hear you, I'll repeat your question so everyone else can hear you. Yes, sir.
Statute requires, I think we could use a microphone. I think they replaced this one, so this might work. Am I heard? Okay. The statute requires that you produce positions that ensure public safety. There's nothing over there that ensures public safety. There's nothing over there that comes anywhere close to being a maximum security. You're dealing with people which you define as psychopaths, who are notoriously great liars. Whereas Joran van der Sloot, who we know committed 2 murders and finally got in prison by 1, and we've seen the results of your program. We saw the murder of Drew Shadeen. I am not going to sleep well with those beasts over there, and anybody else going to sleep well. You are bringing known stage 3 psychopaths into our community and placing them within easy access of the citizens of this county. Now, my understanding is the state owns a very nice facility in Rochester, which has a lot better facility access and protection than this thing right over in our streets. I ask a question, because we know who sponsored this bill, why the citizens of Isani County are considered expendable.
Who sponsored the bill?
And the House representative from Rochester who sponsored the bill were not allowed in her own area. I have been a medic. I have seen people. I know what's going on here. I do not want 48 psychopaths in my community. Thank you very much.
Well, first, I would just like to tell everybody that it is a little misleading for them to say that this is limited to the first batch of 6 applicants and then another 6. Because according to the Star Tribune article this morning, they admitted they fully intend to use testing. They fully intend to use all 48 beds. And you can see how with the population increasing, that will have to be so. Now my question is, you don't really have a good track record with safety and security. I have, from the sheriff's office and the police department, more than 100 pages of calls to the police and the sheriff from that facility. You don't have a good track record for safety and security, so I would like to know what changes are going to be made and how you are going to reconcile a less restrictive setting, which has been mandated by the court and which is what the lawsuit is all about, how you're going to reconcile that with our public safety, and where are you going to get the money to do that?
So let me, there's two parts to your question, at least two parts, and I want to separate my responses. First, and it also gets to part of the issue raised by the first gentleman. There is currently a number of responses to a request for proposal that was made by the state for less restrictive alternatives. So this is not just the Cambridge community. We're talking about statewide, the development of less restrictive alternatives. We fully expect that the court will, the federal district court will hold the state accountable and responsible for building and supervising and providing oversight for more facilities across the entire state, which gets me to the second part of your question, which is around security. The population that is currently served on this campus is a very, very different population, and we don't have all the same security measures. We don't have security counselors. We don't have the same level of supervision and staffing. We don't use security cameras. We don't have GPS monitors. We don't.
There are security cameras.
There, the security cameras don't record. So there are a number of changes. There's not key cards to get in and out of the facility. There will be a number of security upgrades and changes in addition to, and again, there are people here who can talk a great deal about it, but the population currently served on campus is developmentally disabled persons who also have some interaction with the public safety system, but because of the level of their disability, we are monitored very closely under another settlement that I talked about earlier, which is the Jensen settlement. So the things that we might be able to do to manage a population in the sex offender treatment program, those things are not available to us when we serve and treat the population that is on the campus today. We fully expect a very different kind of relationship with local law enforcement, with the sheriff, and we don't, because we have security counselors in our sex offender treatment program who manage, and as we talked about, the Office of Security and Investigations, that will be able, who do that first level of security for us right on the campus, and certainly Nancy can answer that one, but very, very different populations and very, very, very different types of security.
Well, not really that different in what the crimes they've committed. Different in that you have the resources, perhaps. I guess that's my question, is perhaps. The other question I have is, have any of you been over to this site and seen that it is plunked right smack dab in the middle of a residential area? Have you seen it? And do you think that it is appropriate to have sexually dangerous psychopaths, mentally ill and dangerous people so close to a residential area without the benefit of a razor wire fence? Would you like to live over there? Would you? Please answer individually. Would you feel safe living over there?
So I live in South Minneapolis, where there are a number of sex offenders, only one that is monitored by and supervised by us. Feel extremely comfortable about the work that we do to monitor and supervise the clients that are in our care. Can't speak to the rest of the population. I have 2 teenage children. And of course, I understand the concerns and fears people have. Our job is to make sure that we provide the right kind of staffing and supervision, and we do. The reports that you've shown have clearly demonstrated to all of us that the population, to be successful in making sure that this community stays as safe as it needs to be, something we all want in our communities, So the answer to your question is yes, if knowing what I know about the people who run these programs, and it's their job, it's our business, that's what we do, is to do everything we can to keep the people in the program safely treated and the communities in which they are in safe.
Are you aware how easy it is to disable a GPS tracking device?
I'm going to have Ralph answer that question, but I wanted to answer your question or address your question just a few moments ago. When Liz talked about the number of sex offenders in our state, there are 16,000 registered sex offenders. Some are in prison, 700 are with us, and the majority are in our communities. We may or may not know where they live. They may be level 1, level 2, level 3. The level 3 men, mostly, you're going to know if you went online and found out where level 3 folks might be residing. Like Ann just said about the treated sex offenders, myself personally, I would prefer to live next door or in the community where the clients have been treated versus a man or men who may not have received treatment at all and gone through the court process, maybe went to prison and was released in the community without treatment. The gentlemen that are coming, if the courts decide to place them here, have been through years of treatment and have demonstrated that they are of less risk, have demonstrated behavioral control. We've known them for many, many, many years.
They're psychopaths.
Some of the men are higher in psychopathy than other men in our treatment program. And then some men are lower in psychopathy. They're not all high in psychopathy as you state.
I didn't state high or low. They're psychopaths at the end.
Again, I think what you're confusing is that there's the legal term of the commitment as a sexual psychopathic personality, and then there's the idea of psychopathy, which is a clinical idea. And again, not all of our guys would be considered psychopaths. Obviously, some are. Did you want Rob to come up and talk about GPS or any question?
While we're going to, I'm sorry, really quick, was there 6 people that you have identified to come here?
Correct.
12?
There's
And maybe I missed it, because I got here a couple of minutes late.
Sure.
Did you mention what did each of these people do to commit a crime?
No, we did not. We did not do that. What's happening at the very beginning of the process in which the petition is just being completed and submitted to the court, so I can't provide that individual private information at this point.
Could you, without mentioning their names? I mean, we hear this, sexual something, this, that, or the other, but you don't. I don't know. Did they rape somebody? Was it a little girl? Was it a...
I don't have the individual backgrounds or histories with me on each of the 6 that are being petitioned. But like I mentioned earlier, these first 6, it's going to take several months for this to play out. There is a second 6 that is identified, the men who are medically compromised that live at Loose Lake. But that's as far as we've gotten. The Cambridge site is licensed for 16 beds. There are 48 beds there, but we're licensed for 16. So, that's where we're at. That's where our starting point is. Would you mind if we took turns and came up to the microphone just so we could have a good conversation? But before I take the next guy's question, I'll answer another question from you, and then I would like Ralph to address GPS.
And then just really quick, what does it cost the taxpayers for each one of these individuals to go through this whole process? Because it sounds pretty much like a country club almost.
Their civil rights are restored after they've served their prison sentence. And when their civil rights are restored, constitutionally they have the right to work, for education, for treatment, And their environment is very different than somebody who's in the prison system when their rights, when they no longer have their civil rights.
Okay, I really have to ask this quick question, I'm sorry.
Can I just finish my thought, please? So to answer your question, the per diem for a client in the sex offender program is around $318 a day.
I just said what it costs taxpayers to house and teach and.
Right, $318 a day is our daily per diem.
I thought civil rights, they were,
Would you step up
committed.
to the microphone, that
Yes,
way
I
I'll
will.
be able to hear you.
I have a question. I'd like to know, you mentioned staffing levels. Could you please share what, if you can, what the staffing ratio levels will be? And if that is just security counselors, or will it be professional staff on campus to help?
Good question. Yes, we'll have, we're actually developing a staffing plan this week as we speak, because it's just 6 to start with. We have a very, very small part of the house. But there will be security counselors, and there will be managers, obviously, somebody to manage the situation and provide direction and supervision to the staff. There will be clinicians, there will be nursing staff. We have to also provide health services. If we were to grow and we're larger than 6, there would be additional staffing that would be necessary.
So you'll have safety mechanisms in with the staffing to ensure public safety outside of the gate?
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm a victim of a sexual offender who was in St. Peter and he's now in Moose Lake.
Can you get a better mic, because we can't hear it? Yeah, breaking up.
Okay, is that better? Okay, so he was in St. Peter, and now he is in Moose Lake. He is originally from this community. I want to make sure he's not going to be back here, but he was civil committed. So what does that mean? Does that mean that he could eventually still get out, and that he could be living back here?
I'm not sure who you're speaking of, but if he is civilly committed today, and he's at Moose Lake, and he's in treatment, he has the right to petition to the court to be provisionally discharged. But if he's not progressing through treatment, if he's not doing what he needs to be doing, constitutionally, the way it's written in law is that once a client has served his prison time and his time with the Minnesota Sex Offender Program, he has the right to petition. That doesn't mean we have 1 out of 700 men.
Would he ever be put back in this community knowing that I live here?
When Liz was speaking earlier about making it known that you're a victim and that you want to be notified when the court process begins, then you would have that right, and that you would be contacted by the court.
I don't think I'm sorry, I don't agree with any of this because I am a victim. I've gone through it. I really do not think that we should have them in our community. Everyone's going to be scared. It's not just children, it's adults too. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that. It is adults. We get that to us too. And why should we have them in our community? Why? I know that you say that they're going to be in a secure facility. It's not always secure. And for stuff that where they're at, they do have like underground passages and stuff that they can get through. And it's not fair to put us into that position. I'm sorry, I'm a victim. I've been through this and I don't want to have to think about it. I've had to close my windows in my house when it's really nice outside because I can't handle it. And it's just not fair. I really think that they need to think about things like that. And again, keep my bathroom door I can't keep my bathroom door open. I can't keep my windows open. I can't do anything because of what a sexual offender has done to me. And I really think that no one in this community should have to deal with it.
Thank you.
Giving those guys too much protection. You can't even find out what they did, that's ridiculous.
Can I just respond? So one of the things, we can't give you client-specific information, but we can, I think what will be, well, I think, we are bound by statutes. We all are. But I do think, well, certainly not giving names.
Are there pedophiles?
So what we would be able to do is to give you like a constellation of, sort of what this client looks like. Sort of a high-level summary of what this client looks like. Clearly, as these clients' petitions make their way through the courts, that information is very publicly available. Very publicly available. Now, it's an interesting twist in law, but courts can make that information public. We cannot. So as these people start to make their way through the court process, more and more information about these clients become available to us generally in the public. And it's frustrating for us. We'd be sitting in a better position here if we could talk more specifically about individuals and to provide you with something, but we will do what we can to provide sort of those high-level summaries so that you understand a little bit about who we're talking about.
What is the website that we have that information that's going to be coming from the court?
What's the website for
Is
the
there a
court?
website that has court information?
Sheila or Sarah, is there website information that we could provide either at the end or is it on our face sheet? It is on our sheet. When you came in, I believe there's a table in the back. It's just a double-sided overview of our program. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Oh, on the bottom?
On the bottom of the front page. We can get that information to you. It's not on this sheet.
I want to say I'm so mad, I think I need to go to phase 2. But all along I feel like I worked for DHS for 20 plus years. I know how it works and I feel we're being told not the truth. I think we're being slipped something that's not true. Following the papers, 6 people at first, then 12. Oh, and it's exciting, we have middle ground. Now we're going to have 48 to 60 people, provisional discharges. These people are cured. St. Peter, they're walking around. I don't know what they're doing in Moose Lake. But how do you know? Are you dropping them off at Walmart and seeing if they head for the little kids section? How do you know if they're cured? You don't know. You don't know. And I haven't seen any research on anybody curing a sexual predator. Never. If you have research, I'll gladly read it. I'm sure anybody in here would like to know. Can they be cured?
No. You're right. No. We don't use that term. You're right. They're not cured. It's more akin to recovery when you're an addict of alcohol or drugs, in terms of you're always in recovery and you're always watching your behavior and taking care of your addiction. It's sort of like that in terms of lowering your risk, but you're not.
You can't compare
you can't
the
take
two.
a magic pill.
You can't compare the two.
Those levels.
You cannot compare the two.
You You cannot compare those two.
Raping a baby and having a fear, I think, are two different things.
You can't compare those two levels. I don't know what education you were taught, but you can't.
What I meant, ma'am, was that there isn't a cure, there isn't a magic bullet, there isn't something that you can take to assure that someone is never going to reoffend again. You can provide treatment and provide everything you possibly can, but the change that has to occur within the client. We can provide the external security and the external services to lower risk, but in the end of the day, the change comes from within in the individual, and that's when I meant the comparison. I'm not comparing someone who's committed a sexual assault with someone who's addicted, although we have men who are chemically dependent as well in our program. But my point was that there isn't that magic bullet. It is about human process and change and making decisions and choices that they need to do on the inside.
And I'm not taking that risk. None of us will take that risk for any of us.
Well, the analogy is good, only that relapse is part of both diseases. Relapse is part of both diseases.
That's a good point too. You're right.
So,
and there are reoffenses that occur in the population in Minnesota, those who have been labeled as sex offenders who have committed sex crimes. The recidivism, we do have research and lots of material that we can provide, and education. Just coincidentally, last Thursday, and there were some folks from Cambridge that attended. We did a presentation for many people. There were people from the public, but also attorneys, judges, etc., and clinical folks. And we talked about our program for a good 3 hours and kind of walked through the entire treatment process. We can provide additional information, and that's really why we're here, to explore what you need, what kind of information we can get you, what your concerns are, what your questions are, so that we can get you answers if we can't answer them. That's really what we're here for today.
Okay, I just have a couple of quick things. Okay, talked about flipping things in and that sort of thing. That was just totally awful. I think that's all I had. Oh, that they've never set foot in the community. That was in one of the papers.
but that wasn't what was in today's paper.
Right,
They
but
will,
it was,
they will.
it wasn't. I sat there and going, I've had cancer twice, I've had renal failure, and these guys are medically needy. Where would they go for their treatment? Cambridge Hospital is right up there. So they will be in the waiting room with my grandchildren as they spin and sing and wait for their turn.
Both in Moose Lake and in St. Peter, when clients need to be seen by a physician at a clinic or a hospital, they do go to the local clinic or hospital in those two communities, both of which are very small. Moose Lake population is right around 2,000. St. Peter is very, very close to what Cambridge is. They're with staff at all times, and but they are in the community when they need medical services beyond what we can provide with nursing staff at our facility. That's correct. Please, could you please maybe get in line if you have another question?
So you have no fail-safe in your security system. Anybody knows anything about that knows that we usually violate because it doesn't have redundancy.
Sir, if you wouldn't mind, I'd appreciate it if you get in line also so that everyone's got a turn. Go ahead.
What you spoke on was weighing risks and, in your professional opinion, thinking that these individuals are now able to go from one facility with a petition to another, that they can be monitored, that they, as well as the community, will be at some level of safety. But the safety level is never going to get down, or the chances of them repeating is never going to be zero. The community is never going to be absolutely safe with having these individuals, psychopaths in some cases, in the community. And the other thing is, bureaucracies, as you noted, grow. The total number of individuals that were in MSOP in 1990 was 30. Then in 2000, grew to 575, and now we're up to nearly 700. I'm taking this actually from minnesota.state.us. So it's grown greatly. Bureaucracies grow. And it's not the 6, not the 12, it's not even the 48. But as we progress, it's going to be 96, 106, 206. And there's nothing to curb that growth. And there's nothing that you can say that says this community is going to be absolutely safe. And when somebody does escape and somebody does something heinous in this community, are you willing to like pack up and leave? No. You'll try to convince us again, oh, we're taking now the measures that we need to ensure your safety. And then when something happens again, or somebody lives in our community and you just release them out, eventually, I mean, they don't belong here. They simply don't. Build something next door in St. Peter or Rochester or somewhere else, but not next to kids' playgrounds, not next to perhaps a new library, and in a residential area. It makes absolutely no sense, and you can't provide the safety that this community is entitled to.
My first question is, who approves the licensing for the 16 beds as of right now? You have 16 beds. Who approves that?
The beds are currently licensed by the Minnesota Department of Health as a supervised living facility.
Does that come with levels of supervision, or is it any type of level step of person that needs supervision?
So both of our other facilities that are operated by, as Nancy talked about, both at St. Peter and Moose Lake are also licensed as supervised living facilities, also by the health department. So it is the same organization that will license and look for the same things they look for in our program at St. Peter and the one at Moose Lake.
And what is that program that licenses it? So we all know who to contact to get no more licensing for beds.
So the Minnesota Department of Health is out of the licensing process in the state, and there are inspections on a regular basis. There is also, our other two programs have a treatment license from the Department of Human Services as well. We're not certain that that will be the treatment license that we use, but clearly the living and residential license will be from the health department. I'm not sure, are you looking for staffing levels, or, I'm trying to get at exactly what you want to know about the license.
These 6 people that you say are petitioning to come to this community are low-functioning sex offenders. And when they come to this community, you're allowing them, as of right now, to try to petition to come to this community. And you have no security factors in place, because things could go through quicker. It could be in the spring, and you might not have things completely secured. And when things get approved, are we getting notified as a community by the mail to know when and what is happening and the level of offender?
So one of the things we haven't talked about yet is the community liaison group. One that will exist, the first meeting is November 4th, where we start to talk very specifically about, Nancy talked about all the work groups that are going to take place, but we actively involve the community in every part of that process. Here's the security. Here's where we are in the process. We know, for example, that these petitions won't even make their way to the, remember Nancy said there's a couple of stops on the way, they won't even make it to the first stop until sometime late in December. And then that group has 30 days to review and make a determination. And then they make their way to the appeal panel, sorry, that can take up to 6 months. We have in front of us 6 to 9 months to start to work very closely with you so that you can see all along the way all the things we are doing to make sure that this environment is as safe as you are concerned about. And again, we all live in neighborhoods, we all live in places, we all have concerns about our safety. There are staff who Nancy has described are highly trained. These are, because of the kind of license, these are supervised. I don't want anybody to misunderstand. These are supervised on a 24/7 basis. These clients are never without supervision and staffing. A supervised living facility means exactly that. They are supervised constantly. But I don't know what else you want to know about the license. So.
But isn't that what they are now? In St. Peter, in Moose Lake, why can't there be a separate facility so they're not, so they aren't less secure there and not right next to a park?
So we actually do have something that looks like that on the St. Peter campus. And as I said earlier, we have received information from across the state. This won't just be the Cambridge community. We will be looking at programs across the entire state, all of which will have to meet the same level of supervision and oversight for the clients that we're talking about.
But even with you saying the 24-hour supervision and security that you say, there's no 100% that somebody is not going to get out or offend again, even within that facility. Nobody can sit up here or can sit anywhere and say that there's a 100% guarantee about anything and about the neighborhoods we live in today. Again, there are risks. We do everything we can to minimize those risks. And as Nancy said, what we know is that sex offenders who are treated and who are supervised, their ability to return to the community makes them much safer. And I know that it's very difficult for people to hear. That we live in environments where that in fact there are risks, and I don't want to downplay this one by any means at all. But I think what people need to understand is that the pressure. The alternative that it makes us all extremely uncomfortable is, we are in the middle of a court process. Is that we would have to do this without being able to plan with the community, that the courts would start moving people into the community without any planning at all. We get to plan. We get an opportunity to think very carefully about security, risk, the number of clients. There are 48 beds available. We don't want to concentrate. Let me be very clear about this. We don't want to create a whole series of institutions around the state. That's not our intention. So we're very carefully going to start with the first group of 6 with their petition. The court will do what the court will do. The next 6, and then what we do is manage and do an excellent job of making sure that we minimize risk and create a treatment environment for this group of clients.
Are you a doctor? Yes, ma'am. Okay, how many years have you been studying, for love, I got a big mouth.
Not big enough.
How many years have you been practicing in your field for sexual predators?
Put it closer to your mouth.
So the question is, how many years have I been practicing in the field of sex offender work?
Yes.
I have been in the field specifically with sex offenders for 7 years.
Okay.
And prior to that, I worked in a forensic setting with clients who are mentally ill and dangerous.
Okay, so can I ask you the question since you're the doctor? No disrespect. How many clients have you known that's been curable or turned around and learned and been treated?
Again, like has been said previously, in sex offender treatment, we don't cure clients. You can cure certain illnesses.
Yes.
You can treat and manage other things.
Yes.
Sex offending behavior is not something you can cure.
Okay.
So that being said, you asked how many people I've worked with that I feel have successfully progressed through treatment. The area I oversee are those guys who have successfully progressed through treatment.
They are not the offenders.
No, they have not.
And you know this by how? Did you monitor them?
They're locked up. The clients that live at Community Preparation Services live outside the secure perimeter at St. Peter in a group home-like setting that is less secure than what we're talking about for Cambridge. We monitor them constantly. We monitor them with staff. We monitor them with GPS, global position systeming. We monitor them with assessments like polygraphs to verify their report of what they are and are not doing. We monitor them when they're on provisional discharge. We monitor them with urinalysis, drug testing, because we want them to tell us that they're doing well, but we also want to be able to use all the tools in our tool belt to reinforce that with objective measurements. So of the clients that we have living outside the secure perimeter, no, none of them have reoffended in their current placement.
That you know of.
That I know of.
Okay. I've been a mental health worker for 23 years plus. I know the system. The schizo and bipolars are treated with medicine and treatment. They can be trusted in the community. They don't hurt nobody else. Sex offenders scar people for the rest of their dying life. And like that young lady said, she lives in fear because that sex offender can come and go as one. We're treating sex offenders like they're human. They're not human. You've been raped, you've been beaten, you've been doing anything from them, they're not human. And I can say, because I'm also a survivor, I can say that. And I am a board. So please think about where you're going to place these people, because I don't want them in my house or in my neighborhood, because I will shoot them, because I know what it's all about.
Okay, first off, I recognize that you're the policy implementers, not the policy makers. So we have to start as a community looking to the policy makers and talking and working with them.
This is what DHS did on their own, though. The bill did not pass. They have done this on their own.
Okay.
They've done it on their own.
Well, that's good to know. Okay, so this is the first facility like this in the state. So there's no track record, everything's theoretical. I believe our main recourse is to research the Rochester site and make it visible which site actually is more viable through whatever means we can. And noting the choice was because, from what I understand, a power broker move. I'm very familiar with the Rochester area, and I know they have to have more power brokers and more wealthy people in Rochester than they do in Cambridge. So I don't think this program is going to go away. I think what we need to focus on is why Cambridge was picked and why others were not, including the existing sites. That would be the way to go, because we're not going to stop this program. And I'd rather have them in a secured facility than living next door in South Minneapolis with me. I have to agree with that. But I don't believe, as others have said, this close to playgrounds and to residential areas, that there aren't better facilities for this than Cambridge.
Can I have, a couple of people have cited a Rochester facility. Does anybody have more detail on, as far as I know, the state turned over all of its property when I was at campus back in the 1980s. I'm not familiar with any property that the state owns or operates in the Rochester area. So if anybody has more details on that, please feel free to bring those to us, because
Olmsted County, somewhere in Olmsted County.
Well, Olmsted County may own property, but the state really only has 3 campuses.
In Olmsted County.
And I don't know of any property that we own in Olmsted County either. So we own 3 pieces of property that are really left over from what were 15 state institutions 20 years ago. We have the St. Peter campus, we have the Anoka campus, we have actually we have 4, and we have Cambridge, and then we have Moose Lake. That's the property, and we look at, and there's a potential of looking at bids. As I said, we're looking, we did see some submittal of bids from across the entire state, so there is a possibility, but I'm not familiar with any of state property in Rochester, so if anybody has that detail, I'd be happy to get that from you.
Ready? I'm the adult survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and I'm an artist creating artwork in this subject matter, so I feel uniquely qualified to stand before this entire group and talk to you about my concerns. I don't have faith in this at all. This hasn't been an open process. Our city council members and our mayor didn't even know. You're giving us lip service right now, and you're not telling us anything new to minimize the risk. Nothing new to minimize the risk. I want to know who the people are I need to contact to start a petition, a real petition that will work within our government to stop this before it happens. Come on, who's the person? Who's the head person? I need to know.
That would be Mark Dayton. Mark Dayton.
The courts will make the determination, as we've said, of who comes to us and who leaves our facilities. In fact, there's 2 levels of court decision. If the court, in fact, determines that a client is ready and the risk has been minimized in such a way that they meet the statutory definition of either a transfer or a provisional discharge, the court will make that determination. We're beginning to see it already, where we have clients who are moving into the communities and the courts are approving those provisional transfers and provisional discharges. What court?
What court?
The Supreme Court Appeal Panel. It's a panel of 3 judges who he will hear every single one of those cases, every single one of these cases. The process for getting into our program is through the county attorney's office, but the way out, either through a transfer or provisional discharge, is through a Supreme Court Appeal Panel. There are thousands of licensed programs across the state where courts could determine a client could live without risk, and as we've already said, out of corrections, it happens on a pretty regular basis that people move back into the community. So the Supreme Court Appeal Panel are the decision makers. I know that there's a petition being put together for the governor. Certainly, if you provide something to the governor's office, they will respond. They also have a responsibility to the courts. It's our job to balance that, and I think somebody said earlier, we're the implementers, not the policymakers, nor are we the judiciary.
But this is your plan.
Mm-hmm.
You did this on your own. It is not an executive order.
Thank you.
I am Audrey Levenstow. I am a retired 3-year RN, graduated from St. Barnabas Hospital. Did my psych internship at Moose Lake. Since then, I worked in nursing homes, and in the old nursing home, there was a mental ill male individual that if you did not say the right thing the right way to him, he would get very angry and you could be in trouble. That was an intermediate level nursing home. You should have been in skilled care, not intermediate. But I did not know how to say things properly to him. And he pushed me down the stairs. Now then he got sent back to Moose Lake because that's inappropriate setting, and I feel that since the mental health individuals have been reintroduced into the community, in nursing homes, etc., so many of them, that this is happening the same way now with the sexual offenders. And there were mistakes there. There were problems there. There are going to be mistakes and problems with this also. And I think the community is seeing problems, and you need to find solutions to those problems. And I have some other questions here. Moose Lake is high security. Why do we go from Moose Lake high security to minimal security in our community? Wouldn't it be normal to have medium security? Say like Rush City Prison, they have sex offenders there.
The clients that are civilly committed to MSOP have finished their prison time that they were originally sentenced for after their sex offenses. And when they reach their release date, the courts from the county that they came from, that they committed their crime at, they can then petition and have the man committed to the state. So the men that we work with have already finished their prison sentences, and then they're civilly committed to the state indeterminately. In the United States, there are 20 other programs, or 19 other programs like the one in Minnesota. Minnesota, as a state, long ago chose to have a civil commitment program. Many states don't. All states have different sentencing laws and different ways in which to either rehabilitate or supervise or release men who have committed sex crimes. Next door in Wisconsin, they have several hundred men who are civilly committed, and I believe they have around 100 or so that have been something like ours. They don't call it provisional discharge, but it's similar to that, kind of a conditional release into the communities of Wisconsin. They have a different system. Each of the 20 state systems, civil commitment systems, are very different. And ours is quite large because up until this point, the courts have not chosen to move men out on a provisional discharge. We're seeing a change in that, and this is part of that. If the courts decide to move these 6 into a lesser restrictive environment here in Cambridge, but again, it's really up to the court system that we have in place. In the other states, there are different numbers of men committed in the smaller states. Obviously, it's a smaller number. But per capita, Minnesota has civilly committed the most in the country. Most of you probably know this, and I heard Drew Shaheen, the tragedy you mentioned that occurred in 2003. And after that tragedy is when we saw the population grow in our program. We went from admitting 12 or so a year, the courts did, and now it's around 50 a year, and has been for several years since 2004.
Are there other states that are being mandated by the federal government to do this process, or is Minnesota late with the process of helping the men get to transitional housing, which you sound like it's going to be, the group home is going to be the end point of most transitional housing?
Like Ann was talking about a few minutes ago, there will be many places within the state where men will be able to be provisionally discharged to. These 6 individuals that we're talking about will be transferred to Cambridge, again, if the courts choose to do that. And what will occur in the years to come is that provisionally discharged clients from MSOP will be located throughout. They might be in a group home, they might be in a foster home for adults if they have developmental disabilities and if that's appropriate. They might be in an apartment, they might be in supervised housing. There will be they might be living with their parents. These are men who have families and support systems in their communities too. So I think you would see a variety of different placements depending on the individual and what his needs are.
I also had the question about other states.
Yes.
There are a number of states that are under federal jurisdiction where the feds are supervising and overseeing the programs. We currently continue to oversee our program, but in some states they are being run by under federal jurisdiction. And then there are other states, as Nancy mentioned, where there is movement and transition from clients out of more highly secure, Sally Ports and razor wire types of facilities to secure facilities, but just not at that level of security. So we're one of the last states, if not the last, to really begin to transition clients to what are described as less restrictive alternatives, which I know sounds frightening to people, but they're just not as restrictive as what looks like prison environments. So I wanted to get to your first question, which is what's happening in other states.
You spoke of transitional care and assisted living. Are both going to be available, or are they using the terms synonymously, transitional care and assisted living?
The first group of men have intellectual disabilities, and the second group of men of 6, we've identified 6 men who are medically compromised or very ill or elderly. We have, I believe our oldest resident is 91 years old, and our youngest is probably about 21. Just to kind of give you a range of the clients that we serve.
Would the older individuals ever be admitted to a general public nursing?
No. There's a forensic nursing home that the state operates in St. Peter, and in that nursing home there are clients from our program. There are clients that are civilly committed as mentally ill and dangerous, and there are patients who are from the prison system. They're actually inmates who have been moved to the forensic nursing home to be served. Ma'am, I'm wondering if it's 4:30 and there are a few people behind you. We'd like to maybe get to their questions so we could wrap this up for the afternoon.
But you're still going from Moose Lake High Security to minimal security in Cambridge. Is that correct?
There's 6 clients coming from St. Peter. If the courts approve to Cambridge. And the other 6 individuals that are on the assisted living unit are currently in Moose Lake. That's correct.
Are you guys taking a dinner break? Is that why you're kind of pushing it?
Our next, we're doing this again at 7 this evening. Do you have a question, sir?
Excuse me. I'm a Cambridge transplant. I grew up in Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park area. Met my lovely wife, who's been a lifetime resident of Cambridge. Came up here with her before we were married and decided this was a place that I wanted to raise my family. Been married now, going to be 11 years this year. We've got 2 great kids, and we love Cambridge. We love the school district. We love the community. We love everything about Cambridge. My wife and I also run a mortgage company here in Cambridge and are responsible for bringing a lot of people into the community, providing housing for these people. My first question is, what do you say to the people that are going to be in close proximity to this center, so to speak, about their home values decreasing? Because statistics show that if a sex offender moves into an area, just one sex offender will decrease property values by at least 4%. So I would imagine that property values for people that are around here that have anywhere from 8 to 60 sex offenders are going to have an issue with property values. So what do you say to those people?
To answer the first part of your question regarding safety that I think we've addressed a few times so far today, putting safety and security first, and that's what we do, that's our business, and that's our top priority, keep people safe in the community. Again, all I can say is on that campus, on that acreage that the state owns, where the clients reside, they'll be supervised and monitored, and we'll do what we do to make sure that the public is safe.
Okay, appreciate that. I'm going to speed along here. Are there any local officials in Cambridge or Sandy that are openly supporting this facility? And if so, what are their names?
I don't know, sir.
None that you know of?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you. You said that you closely monitor these folks, and just in August there was someone in the Moose Lake facility that committed suicide. Was he being closely monitored as well?
He committed suicide within the facility, but I really can't openly talk about that specific case or his.
I understand that, but was he being closely monitored?
Yes, he was monitored.
Okay, thank you. Lastly, are these people going to be walking around Target, Walmart, Kohl's, those types of places as well?
I'm going to back up when I said monitor. The clients reside on units. They have individual rooms, or they might have a roommate. So they have privacy in their rooms. We don't have staff in their bedrooms standing over them. So I want to make sure that I clarify that.
So are they able to surf the internet in their rooms?
They do not have access to the internet.
That was a question
at all.
the gentleman had.
No.
Okay, so my last question is, are these people going to be able to walk amongst us at Walmart, Target, Kohl's, those types of places?
For the individuals that live in Cambridge, we have yet to decide all of the programming pieces. If they were in the community, and like we talked a little bit ago about the clinic situation or the hospital, they would be supervised at all times, just like they are when they're in St. Peter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm really nervous because I'm going to be the gray duck in the group, and I'm not going to address you three. I'm going to address my community where I live, where I have children who go to school. There are 17,000 sex offenders in Minnesota, people. They're already here. They're in the group homes. They live there's a group home 3 blocks from the Cambridge facility where I work right now that has sex offenders, history of sex offenders. The Cambridge community, this facility has been there for over 100 years. Think about the economic development. Take a different spin. I get it. Everybody's scared. I got it. Nobody wants their kid raped. Yes, duh. Neither do I. But here's the deal. They're going to come, and the staff that work there are very passionate. There's several of them here today. They are going to take care of these patients, these clients, these offenders, whatever you want to call them. I work at the Cambridge facility right now. Mito. It's not Mito. It's the Minnesota Specialty Health System, but I work there.
But that's one that has to be sold.
That is leaving campus, but the sex offenders are coming to that campus.
No one was told those were sex offenders.
Well, and that's because they're committed as DD, but here's the deal. They're there. They've been there. They've been in this community for years. The staff that work there, again, we have 30-plus year veteran employees, ex-employees, and they are passionate about their job. And they're not going to let these people willy-nilly into Target and touching your little kids. It's not going to happen, okay? So I am the gray duck.
You're going to guarantee it.
I'm nervous about it.
You're going to guarantee it.
I'm not going to guarantee anything.
You just told me it's not going to happen.
When I work, I know where my clients are. They're going to be GPS monitored. It's going to be live.
Really well.
Okay, that's
March
okay. You
5th
can
in
attack me.
Canada, the
I'm
latest
okay
up
with
in
that.
San
But I just
Jose
want
by a
to
man who was
different
wearing
spin onto this
monitor.
because these jobs, these people make more money. That's more money going into this community. They're going to come here. They're going to buy houses. Do you think the people we have working here right now, that's all they're going to need? Heck no, they're going to need way more staff. So they're going to stimulate our economy. This is not a bad thing. These people are still going to be behind locked doors. And they're behind locked doors right now. And we have way more issues now trying to deal with them than what we're going to have with the sex offenders. Because they have way more security for us. From what I heard, you guys are like the experts in surveillance. That's what I heard. So, take it as you will. I'm the gray duck. It's a different spin, and that's fine. And you can hate me, and I'm okay with that. It's no problem. But you got to think about this. They're coming. And they're already here. There's 17,000 of them in Minnesota, you guys. Come on.
But what happened that we have this extra day? You're not going to answer?
You can ask them about the extra beds.
Hi, I have two things. One, I understand the federal judge has to approve everything. When will that occur?
So there's the federal judge in the Jensen case or in the class action suit brought by the sex offenders of the state?
The class action suit by the sex offenders, not the Jensen case.
So we are just beginning the process of litigation. We were in settlement discussions for almost 2 years. At this point, I would say they were not we didn't successfully settle, so we are now starting litigation. We're doing, for those who understand that process, we're in the process of discovery, all the information being gathered, so both sides can argue their points, which means it will be in front of the judge, probably. The judge could start making orders already, and in fact, there is a public order from Judge Donovan Frank around this transition. He very specifically has tied the Jensen settlement to the Karsten settlement, and he has a technical advisor who is responsible for monitoring what happens with this campus.
What exactly is the public order? Can you say the specifics of that public order that he issued?
Sure. We can make copies available for you on our website as well, but it was an order to the department. I'm certain I'm not speaking out of school. Those orders are public, so we will get the information about that order.
Can you just generally say what it says?
Sure. So because we currently are under a court order for the Cambridge facility to continue to move persons with developmental disabilities into the community, Judge Donovan Frank, is a federal district court judge, is very concerned because the population that we have been petitioned on behalf of is lower functioning people with intellectual disabilities. It's a population that he cares deeply about. Not that he doesn't care about all populations, but it's a population that he has advocated for as a judge, and he wants to make sure that what we do is appropriate and actually serves this population the way it should be served.
So Cambridge is mentioned in that order?
Yes, Cambridge is the subject of that order, and it is federal district court. Again, I can get you more, if I can get out to a website, I can get you the address and the information so you can take a look, so you can see that order. It's a public order.
We will, if you'd like to ask one more question, and then we'll take the two individuals behind you, and then we're going to end for the afternoon.
Okay, so that website, you'll be able to give people information on how they can get updated on that federal court approval and the process as it moves on. Correct. The other thing I would like to say is I do work at that facility, and I do have a daughter with disabilities, and I do a very good job advocating for her and other people with disabilities, and I believe people do have rights to have disabilities, and I don't want my daughter subjected to anyone in the community to put her at risk or me at risk. I don't have any problem with the facility being in Cambridge as long as it's secure, and I mean secure, and it keeps everyone outside of it protected.
But there's a big question as to how intellectually disabled they are.
I understand.
That's a big question, because in order to be there in the first place,
in order to be in the Minnesota Sex Offender Program in the first place, you have to be civilly committed. In order to be civilly committed, you have to have served time in prison. In order to have served time in prison, you have to have been deemed mentally competent to withstand trial. You have to take a test under Rule 20 of the Minnesota Rules of Criminal Procedure and pass with a score of 70 or higher. If you have a score of 69 or lower, you are not competent to withstand trial, and you are diverted to an alternate program such as MITO, which is what we had. So I think that you're playing fast and loose with the facts and playing on people's sympathies by characterizing these individuals as having intellectual disabilities. Perhaps some of them do to a degree, but I think that is a broad mischaracterization given that they have to pass that test.
I just wanted to ask, since the court is the ones who are dictating who is moving into our community, is the court going to be responsible if they land up hurting a member of our community, raping a community, is the court's gonna, back that person up? How about our homes that are, the values are gonna go down? Are the courts gonna pay for that? I mean, sure, the courts can say whatever they want, but they don't live in this community. I feel, I'm a grandmother, and I feel if you can't guarantee that they will never offend, one child is too many. One wife is too many. This community is, as far as I'm concerned, is a very safe community. And I want to know who's going to hold this responsible if it goes haywire.
Like I've already said a few times today, and I'll repeat myself. We'll do everything that we possibly can to keep everybody safe. There are no guarantees in our
Then they shouldn't
society
belong
in terms of human behavior and choices. One more question, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Okay, nothing against you people at all, but a cursory of observation at that facility, and what has been presented, shows that the actual security is less than that of an average college dorm. Period. In an average college dorm, you are limiting access in to prevent people coming into the population. Here, you have to limit exit. A single card access, totally inadequate. You need at least a double card access and an observation. There's no indication of an automatic power backup source. If you lose your power, and we do that in this community every once in a while, there cannot be an automatic lockdown because that'd be a violation of fire code. That means power source goes down, no backup, no security, period. You have inadequate lighting of that facility. With regard to nighttime security, you've already said there's nobody recording anything with regard to cameras. And the fence is a joke. You have to have massive increases and expenditures in that area to bring that up to what someone who's involved with things in the Defense Department and other facilities would consider to be adequate. It is not adequate.
We have our physical plant expertise, and they've already started work on the enhancements and changes that we need to make to that campus.
You better publish what those enhancements are going to be.
That's something that we know a lot about, both at Lake and St. Peter, running our higher security facilities.
That's right, and St. Peter and San Quentin are very different from that place over there. And that place over there is right in the middle of a community.
But that's what this lawsuit is all about, is that these clients are petitioning the court to move to a less restrictive facility because it violates their constitutional rights. So it has to be less restrictive. There can't be as much security because the court says
there's going to be people with signs and marching and all kinds of stuff around that facility. That's fine.
Thank you, sir.
For those who don't know me, I'm Representative Brian Johnson. I just want to thank everybody that came out here this afternoon, 3 o'clock on a work day. A lot of you, some of you had left work, some of you came here to find out what was going on. I hope they were able to enlighten you a little bit about what's going on. I myself have numerous other questions that we'll be getting to. Some of those will be done privately in my office down in St. Paul. This was supposed to go till 4:30 today. We're approaching 10 minutes to 5. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming out here. If you have more questions or more information, we'll be another meeting as well at 7 o'clock tonight. Thank you again.
Stay tuned for. Stop.